Welcome to our latest video broadcast. This week I want to talk about maternity leave and steps that employers should take when one of your employees tells you that they are pregnant and obviously going to go on maternity leave soon. It's a subject that is quite close to me at the minute, with my wife obviously been off on maternity leave and now kind of been off over 6 months since Danny was born in January. So she's already now starting to think about, when she goes back to work. Lorraine and I have had these kind of conversations, what does that look like in the future? Is it different hours? What does that all kind of look like? So it is a time when you can be quite unsettling for families. But I guess prior to all of that, it's quite a difficult time for employees anyway. There's a lot of changes that they're going through in their kind of personal life. It can be quite a worrying time, worrying about their own health, the baby's health, worrying about work, reaction that you might kind of face at work, and all things like that. So it's important as an employer and as a manager that you try and kind of make that as easy as possible for your staff members. And that's really about just having some kind of procedures in place in terms of how you kind of deal with that. Obviously there's a lot of kind of legal requirements that you have to comply with obviously kind of pregnant workers, and obviously some statutory requirements around that. But legally, employees don't have to notify you the fact that they're pregnant until 15 weeks before their due date. Now, my experience of that's pretty rare. Most female employees will certainly notify their kind of employer earlier than that. In a lot of cases, they might actually wait until the kind of 12-week scan is out the way and everything's okay there. But in some cases, that they might tell you a little bit earlier than that, depending on the type of work that they do. And I guess in some situations like that, if it's quite early on, you have to kind of remain confidential about that, because they won't want people knowing. But they're perhaps making you just aware because of the type of work that they do. So the advice that we would give employers around that, in terms of an employee comes to you to say that they are pregnant, is really try and keep the communication channels open. So the first step there would be, obviously congratulate them on their good news, find out a little bit more about when the baby is likely to be born, and then possibly look at a kind of risk assessment in terms of their work. So is there any kind of adjustments that you need to make there? If it's quite a manual job, are they doing kind of a lot of lifting, a lot of moving about? If it's a desk job, they sat at their desk for a number of hours a day. So is there anything that you need to kind of put into place to kind of help them during their kind of pregnancy? So some kind of reasonable adjustments. This time of year is quite warm, so again, it's making sure they're drinking kind of plenty of water. You might have kind of rules in place in your business, especially if it's a retail environment. I've seen that before, where the company policy is no water or food when they're serving at the checkouts, for example, or the tills. But again, as a reasonable adjustment, if it's quite warm, they'll need to kind of make sure that they're kind of hydrated. So it's, in that situation, it's possible looking at some of your company rules and relaxing them a little bit, just to kind of support the kind of female worker. And I would say, if you are doing a kind of risk assessment, then it's good practice to do that throughout the pregnancy. So agree what's kind of reasonable. So is that something you perhaps review every 4 or 6 weeks? Obviously, as their body changes and the pregnancy progresses, what might be okay now, 3-4 months down the line, it might be a little bit more strenuous. So let's agree what that kind of looks like, and kind of carry out that risk assessment and just check how things are going during the kind of pregnancy. And if you kind of engage in that kind of open conversation, it just makes it a little bit easier for the employee to kind of tell you what their intentions are, and you can then kind of plan ahead in terms of your work schedules, how long they're likely to be off, and all that sort of thing. So it's really important to have that open communication and that good relationship with your employees, so that you can kind of plan for these sorts of things. Other things that we see as well is just making sure that they get the adequate time off for their antenatal appointments, and again, that's a legal requirement as well. So it's making sure that that's all in place. We've seen some examples before where staff members are forced to perhaps take holidays, or they have to kind of do it in their own time, and that's not acceptable. So you need to kind of make sure that you've got the right procedures in place around that, and that you are being kind of supportive. There's lots of information available on the web regarding employers and employees' rights during maternity and obviously pregnancy. So, and again, that's something that we advise on quite a bit as well. So just make sure that you kind of follow the legal requirements around that. Obviously, when the employee is due to go off, there's certain rights that they have in terms of that time off. So it's up to 52 weeks that they're entitled to have off, and if they meet the criteria around statutory maternity pay, what happens there is that the first 6 weeks are paid at 90% of their average earnings. The next 33 weeks are paid at the current statutory maternity pay, and then the kind of last 13 weeks is unpaid, so they can take up to 52 weeks off. So again, if you engage in conversation early, you can kind of find out what their intentions are, so you can kind of plan ahead for that. What will happen is that legally they'll have to provide you with a MAT B1 form, which basically confirms the expected week that the baby is born. And at that point you can then start to kind of formalise a written response in terms of their entitlement. So you'll be looking at things like when the maternity leave is likely to commence, what their payments will be during, say, the first 6 weeks, the remaining kind of 33 weeks, and the date that they're due to return. Now, in a lot of cases, female workers, I'll try and use some of their holidays as well. So if, for example, the baby is born on, say due the 1st of September, they might want to finish up work at the start of August and actually use some of their annual leave and then start the maternity leave as close to the September date as possible. So again, let's have a look at that and make sure that's all confirmed in writing, so the employee knows at what point their maternity leave starts and what has been used as holidays. Now, holidays continue to accrue during the maternity leave, so again, if, for example, your kind of company policy states any unleave used has to be taken and can't be carried over, in the cases of kind of maternity leave, that's not the case. So if they haven't used all their entitlement before they go off, anything that they have taken should be carried over into the next leave year, and again, they can potentially use some of that prior to them kind of coming back. Other things to kind of think about is what's called keeping in touch days. So they're entitled to 10 keeping in touch days where they can come in and work in your business, get paid their normal rate of pay, and that won't impact on their maternity benefit. So again, good practice to communicate that with your employees before they go off, and certainly confirm that in writing. Now, we've seen examples again where employers are trying to force that issue and kind of say, well, you need to come back and do your keeping in touch days. That's not the case. It's a joint kind of agreement there. So if your female worker wants to kind of use keeping in touch days, then that's fine, but you can't force that issue. That's entirely up to themselves. But again, it can sometimes be quite helpful if you've perhaps got holiday cover, or there's a kind of important piece of work that needs to be completed, and your employee is also thinking about coming back to work and perhaps thinking about putting the baby into a nursery for a day, a creche, a family member, and it just kind of gets them into that kind of routine and back into work. So it's usually kind of used not long before the employee is due back to work, but not in all cases. You might decide something different, but it's a very useful method to get your employee back to work and just get back into that routine, which will be quite unsettling anyway. Other things that are really important is just try and agree what kind of contact you want to have with the employee during their actual maternity leave. Again, they're out the business, they might feel a little bit kind of isolated, they might not want any contact, but there'll be things in your business that you may need to communicate. So things, for example, about any recruitment opportunities, so they're not being discriminated against, any opportunities of promotion, for example. So anything like that, I would certainly be making sure you share that with your employees. So that could either be done through email, posting out a kind of newsletter. If you have a newsletter, it keeps them up to date with business news, or if it's just an actual kind of vacancy update, it's kind of sending that out to them. So agree with your kind of employee what's kind of regular or appropriate conversation and communication around being off. And again, if there's anything around any potential restructures in the business, any significant changes in your business, then it's really important to make sure that's communicated with them, because ultimately, if they're kind of kept out the loop, any significant changes, they then come back to work and they feel, perhaps feeling that isolated and, potentially got a grievance to raise against you. So it's really important just to agree what that looks like. So it's a fine line. So if you don't want to be bothering them every week, they're on maternity leave, and you shouldn't be kind of bothering them around work-related stuff. But what you need to be doing is certainly keeping in some kind of contact about significant business changes that take place. What is important as well is that obviously females, after they've kind of gone off, is that legally they need to have kind of 2 weeks statutory maternity leave, so as to make sure that's the minimum. Some of your workers may want to come back a little bit earlier in terms of not using that full year or a few months, but you need to kind of make sure that legally there's been a kind of 2-week opportunity to take their statutory maternity leave for health and safety reasons. Then you can look to kind of agree what that looks like afterwards. But yeah, but just again agree that during your kind of conversations you have when you're talking about maternity and going off. And really just confirm everything in writing, so in terms of their rights, when they're likely to be back, payment dates, all that sort of things. Make sure that's all kind of confirmed in writing before they go off. And then perhaps if you've engaged early enough and had that regular conversation, they may be open and honest around their intentions for coming back. So they may kind of say they're only looking to come back part-time, they're looking for a change in hours. So again, if you kind of know that, you can kind of try and plan for these sorts of things. Not to say you have to accommodate it, but you need to try and kind of be reasonable and look to see if that is something that you want to do. But ultimately, in a lot of cases, it might just be at the point they're due to return back, is that they perhaps put in a flexible working request or speak to you about a potential change in kind of working hours. So again, if you've got a good relationship with your employees, they'll be quite comfortable having these conversations with you, and you can kind of try and kind of be reasonable around that. So communication is the kind of most important thing. Having adequate kind of procedures in place around that communication, the notification, doing the health and safety risk assessments early on, and if you engage in all of that, and be really proactive, you'll have a really good kind of positive relationship with your member of staff, and there's no surprises when they go off on maternity leave, and you can kind of plan your work schedules accordingly. So now, great intentions, people might say that they're taking a full year off, and then baby comes along, circumstances may change, and they want to come back a little bit earlier than what had been agreed. So again, they can give you some notice around that, and you would have to look to accommodate that as well. So it's never a final agreement when someone goes off, but again, it's just trying to kind of be reasonable and look at kind of what is as a kind of flexible approach around that. So that's it really in terms of just some guidance around maternity leave and your employees going off. There's also something at the moment called shared parental leave, which has been in place for a little while. And again, at the point where you're informing your employee about the rights, just make them aware of the kind of shared parental leave, which is where they can share the maternity leave, if you like, with their partner. We've not come across many examples of that, I have to say. So the likelihood is it's pretty slim, but it is something that could come up. So again, just make sure as part of your communication that has kind of been covered as part of that notification process. So any questions at all on maternity leave, please feel free to reach out. You can get us on the website, so www.thehrbooth.co.uk, and you can sign up to our blog. We've got quite a bit of content around things like maternity leave, etc. on the website, so feel free to do that. If you're an existing client of the HR Booth, then on our kind of client login area on the website, we've got a section dedicated to maternity and paternity. So again, lots of useful information there for you if it is something that you're kind of facing. But we've had quite a few inquiries about this recently, and there's lots of things kind of going on in this area. So just felt it was appropriate to try and share some of that with you today on this short video. So thanks for watching, and any questions, please get in touch. Thank you.